Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Youth Employment Service May webinar. My name is Mark. I'll be hosting you today. Thank you, as always, for your support, and we look forward to any of your questions and engagements. So just a reminder, the purpose behind these sessions is to find ways to engage with our audience, get feedback from the market, discuss anything that you might be experiencing, and see what learnings we can make from each other. As always, please always keep these sessions as interactive as possible. You're welcome to post any questions in the Q&A facility or direct chat facility, and alternatively, you're welcome to mail me on marc@yesforyouth.coza. We will have a playback facility of this available. It will be loaded up onto the Yes YouTube channel, and we look forward to engaging with you around some of the questions. Just a quick reminder, purpose of Yes. Yes is really there to try and tackle this experience trap that is in the market at the moment. Myself and one of the colleagues were actually just chatting just before we kicked off this call. We're looking at one of the CVs, and it really is just amazing how much talent is out there and how hard it is for young South Africans to actually break into the market. And it really does give a purpose to these youth employment service initiatives and youth employment programs that we are creating. Biggest challenge for young South Africans out there at the moment: I can't get a job without experience. I can't get experience without a job. These youth end up finding themselves trapped out and excluded from the labor market. And really, this is where Yes has been able to play a really pivotal part, especially in light of some of the events around COVID-19. Just a quick overview of the agenda today. This webinar is focused around the mining sector and some of the developments in the mining sector. It's become quite a strategic sector for Yes as it goes, as we've gone along, particularly with the rebound in commodity prices and activity there. And we've got some interesting projects that are on the go at the moment. And there's some quite good news that came out of the Mining Indaba this year and some interesting developments there. So we will touch on some of those developments. Yes, journey so far, 80,000 youth, and I think at the close of business today, 81,000 youth will have achieved 12-month quality work experiences out of Yes. We always look at this, and I love looking at this graph because it shows how much of the legwork got put in up front, getting the Gazette published, getting the practice note published, and then gradually working and navigating through things like COVID-19, 2,020 programs registered, 81,000 jobs. I think we're into 10 or 11 into their 5th year of participation, so that's pretty cool. We're doing some nice stuff, and I really do believe Yes is probably the highest impact social initiative in the country at the moment, and that's not something to sneeze at. So thank you all for your support in the journey as we've gone along. Really, what is Yes? It's an enabler of a 12-month quality work experience for unemployed youth. It's a combination of bringing together experience, the Yes smartphone, CV and reference letter, ultimately making youth 3 times more employable. There's been there's been significant input from the Yes executive team, particularly around measurement of things like absorption, ensuring that Yes actually does deliver on its mandate around ensuring absorption. Are the interventions driving youth into being able to build either sustainable businesses or being able to build sustainable career paths? And keep your eyes on the Yes social media. If you're not following them, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, there's going to be some interesting insights being shared there. For those who follow the Yes Hub story, we have a special request. The Yes Hubs in the Alusha and in the Genesis Hub in Saldanha. Please see if you can find them on Facebook and really try and drive some of the initiatives they're doing. We've done some really interesting things in terms of supporting communities in both Alex and the Vredenburg Saldanha area. So please find them, give them your support. What does Yes allow you to do? 1 or 2 full levels on your b-bbee scorecard, and more than a level up. It's an integrated solution which uplifts communities and integrates seamlessly into environmental, social, and governance strategies and social labor plans. And we've actually had some quite interesting discussions around Yes and carbon credit. So if any of you are interested in that, you're running some multinationals, please feel free to reach out to me. We've done some really exciting things in that space over the last couple of weeks, and we'd love to get your input around that. As I mentioned, 80,000 as of the start of this morning, 81,000 by the end of today is my bet. 700 level ups have been achieved in over 4.8 billion rands worth of youth salaries into the South African economy. For those who work in the mining sector, places like Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, Limpopo, Rustenburg, you'll be able to see, yes, made a very meaningful impact there, where we've been able to move salaries from the traditional economic hubs of Gauteng and the Western Cape into those areas. And I think we make it is a massive multiplier effect when youth in those communities are able to generate an income and be able to reinvest that money into their own local communities. Absorption rates, and as I mentioned, this is a big bugbear, or not really a bugbear, but more an opportunity that's been identified by the Yes Exco. They want to be able to drive these absorption rates. I think if you're familiar with the Yes legislation, 2.5% or 5% is the requirement around the Yes legislation. But as you can see, over 32 to 42% of youth being absorbed. And I think that obviously COVID has played a part in this. We really are looking forward to getting more insightful data and sharing that over the various social media channels. Just a quick reminder, if you are part of the Yes family, you are part of an illustrious crowd, everything from mining, financial services, telecommunications, international fast food groups, automotive, pick an industry. Yes has made an impact, and we are really excited to be able to point to a number of these partners having returned for multiple years of participation. Quickly, how do you calculate your Yes target? I'm not going to spend too much time on this, as most of you will be largely familiar with the Yes legislation. But remember that there is effectively 3 calculations that allow you to calculate your Yes target. There is a calculator on the Yes website. First and most common is to take a 3-year average net profit after tax times by 1.5 divided by 55,000. Alternatively, 1.5% of headcount, or using the revenue table. I'm just going to stop for a moment there, catch my breath. Are there any questions from the audience that you'd like me to answer before I move on to the next slides? You're welcome to post them into the chat facility or into the Q&A, and I'll be happy to answer on your behalf. Fabulous. I think you've all heard this spiel before, so I'm going to move on quickly and get into the crux of the presentation for today. So what's the reasons for doing Yes? Bringing fresh new ideas and skills into your business, the opportunity to try out youth before you go and commit to them over a longer work experience, or whether you're looking to do further training. I mean, this is one of the really interesting things that Yes has actually done, some really interesting projects, particularly with the hubs in Alex and Saldanha. Yes has been able to secure co-funding for the likes of the GIZ and the Jobs Fund for everything from automotive through to automotive, culinary, drones, marketing, communications, and there are a number of other programs that we're putting in place there. But what's quite nice is that these youth are having their work experience supplemented with additional certifications and qualifications. And this means that we're not just giving youth a short 12-month work experience, but also building skills and capacity for them to go into the broader economy in areas where there is limited original job creation. Build and support SMEs and entrepreneurs. Just a reminder, if you look at the clarification statement of 2020, it allows the establishment of micro enterprises as an absorption pathway. With the world of work changing rapidly, it is good to be able to establish new small businesses that we can then go and create as the future employers of tomorrow. How Yes works. Remember, you can place your youth directly inside your own business. This is the most common of the models. And then secondly, using some of the Yes implementation partners. So my colleague Farai, many of you will be familiar with her. She's on the call today. She's going to be talking a little bit about how some of the mining companies are utilizing the implementation partner model to be able to capacitate local communities with everything from schools, clinics, technology skills, scooter projects, you name it. We've done a variety of really interesting projects in that space, and Farai will talk to that later on. Really just the value proposition, as say, remembering where the idea is to ensure that youth are more employable at the end of the 12-month work experience. So this just overlays the Yes value proposition for you to have a look at. If there are any questions about this, you're free to post questions into the chat facility, and I will respond to that. Alumni. So this is really just one of the things that we are looking at, really, is to say, if a youth has gone through a 12-month work experience with Yes, is this an opportunity to genuinely change their career trajectory? We are looking at it, and there'll be some interesting research coming out shortly, but we are also engaging with the industry and with other partners to be able to say, what can we do to ensure that youth are genuinely more employable? And I think Farai will also touch to this. I know it's one of her kind of personal passion points that she'll be working to, and we will be able to, and we'll discuss this as well during the Q&A facility. Mining sector has really been strategic for YES. So remembering that the way that the YES legislation is effectively established, remember you have both the mining legislation, and then also the traditional b-bbee legislation. So YES was very well adopted by the organizations in the financial services sector, industrial manufacturing. A lot of the multinationals that were operating in South Africa adopted YES, while the mining sector primarily focused on their social and labor plans, which is it in some ways is unfortunate because YES is at its core is a triple b-bbee incentive. But what's really encouraging, and I think Farai will really drive this point across, is that the organizations are moving from simply looking at YES as a b-bbee incentive, but also being able to integrate it as part of the SLPs and some of their social impact projects. And, we had such a nice story that came through yesterday. One of the mining companies that is participating for non-b-bbee reasons was busy doing the learners driver certifications. And there were 8 young ladies. 2 of them received their learners licenses. And you can imagine in a country where social mobility is a major challenge, the fact that they have access to a learner's license and ultimately a driver's license is game-changing for those youth. Really, I think one of the things that you look at in the mining sector, each person employed in the mining sector has up to 9 indirect dependents. The jobs that you create in the sector are critical. While the industry has had a positive impact on the economy, there has been a number of socioeconomic impacts as well to be considered. And this has been dealt with significantly through the mining charter, which is aimed to look at restoration and supporting historically disadvantaged South Africans, but also to look at everything from ownership to economic and environmental impact. One of our partners is Conservation South Africa. And we had an interesting discussion yesterday around things like water, land reclamation, returning dignity to a lot of these old mining towns that simply been left and forgotten about. And there's some really interesting developments there, and I hope we're able to showcase some of those success stories with you shortly. Really just looking at the elements of the mining charter, just so that you can get a sense of the difference between the mining charter versus YES. You've got ownership, procurement, employment equity, HR development, mine community development, housing and living conditions, sustainable development elements. And this slide will give you a good overview of the difference between triple b-bbee and the mining charter. Social labor plans. This is really where we see an opportunity to create some very significant jobs when we look at YES. And I think what's great is just the shift in mindset from a number of these big mining houses. They're no longer simply looking at YES as a nice to do or b-bbee element. There are some very high impact projects with up to 850, I think is the biggest in the mining sector at the moment. But these jobs are changing communities. And I think that when Farai runs you through some of these success stories, you'll be able to see and give you some ideas for your SLPs. Really, where does YES come in? We can assist with things like local economic development, infrastructure development programs. It'll be everything from sanitation, water, housing, roads, poverty eradication. So we're looking at the earning opportunities for both SMEs and job creation, development of skills of workers and community members. If you've spent your entire life supporting the mining sector and suddenly you've got to go and reinvent yourself with things like technology skills, there's definitely opportunities there. While the mining sector is obviously going through a boom phase at the moment, there is clearly going to be longer term consolidation in the industry, and that's likely to drive down things like downscaling and retrenchment. So we really need to work out ways that we can save and retain the current jobs, alternative solutions, so that we can ensure that job losses become unavoidable. Before I jump into it, we had before handing over to Farai, there have been some key takeouts from this year's African Mining Indaba. Before I hand over to Farai, I'm just going to give the audience a moment to give us any questions that they might have before I hand over. Question that's just come through, and I'm just going to answer this because it comes up in a couple of different formats, is with regards to the national minimum wage, where there may be things like collective bargaining inside of the sectors, and whether YES is separate to this. The answer in that case is that the YES legislation specifically talks about aligning with the national minimum wage. Having said that, where organizations make use of the YES implementation partner model, they will move the opportunity, they will move where they will be the employer on record and ultimately be able to then go and drive, they will then be able to go in the line of national minimum wage as opposed to the collective bargaining side of things. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. If there are no further questions, then I'm going to hand over to Farai. Farai, you should have screen sharing and video rights now on your side.
Super, thanks, Mark, and a very, very good morning to everyone who is on the line. We're really, really excited to talk to you about what opportunities exist within the mining sector and how YES truly aligns with the ESGs, particularly with the S, so that we can help mining houses achieve the strategies. So a few weeks ago, myself and my colleague Samantha went to the Mining Indaba, and it was such a fantastic opportunity with over 5,000 of your attendees who were engaging, looking at trends within the mining sector, looking at how we align with the ESGs, looking at what opportunities exist. And there are 4 takeouts, which we really want to share with you this morning. Thereafter, we'll give you real case studies in terms of how exactly YES integrates into the ESGs, the SLPs, SDGs, and all the other letters of the alphabet. And I think the first takeout that we learned at the Mining Indaba is that mining is a sunrise industries. And you would have heard the word sunrise economies shared by Hukwedi Mandashe, who's the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, also by the President Cyril Ramaphosa, who says that, you know, the mining sector has contributed significantly to GDP. And it's a sunrise industry, not only for its contributions to GDP, even in times of economic decline with COVID-19, but it's a sunrise industry because it's heading towards greener mining practices and looking at how we have cleaner products. And we know that, you know, the integration of the mining charter in 2018 was a significant improvement for the mining industry, but there's still a long way to go to make this industry more attractive to investors, both nationally, continentally, and also globally. So it really is a sunrise economy. It's an economy of the future, which has to be part of the just transition and should lead this transition, leaving no one behind. On the next slide, I'll look at the second takeaway from the Mining Indaba, which is that the industry has to focus on attaining international investment and adhering to global ESG trends. And you'd notice that over the past few months, the mining industry in South Africa suffered a huge blow. And this is because the 2021 Fraser Institute of Investment Attractiveness Index ranked South Africa as one of the 10 worst mining investments in the world. We fell from 40th place globally in 2019 to 74th place in 2021 out of 84 countries globally. And in Africa, we ranked 12 out of 15th. And a huge reason why South Africa was ranked one of the worst mining investment countries in the world is because of our lack of adherence to ESGs, that is environmental, sustainable, and governance strategies and practices. And I think what's been interesting and hearing the president speak at the Mining Indaba is that while this ranking was definitely a blow to the mining industry, it also signals that there is an opportunity to improve. There is an opportunity to align. We know that mining contributes significantly to GDP, and while other industries declined in their GDP contributions, the mining industry increased its contribution during COVID-19. But we also know that there's still more to be done within the sector, and hence we need to align more with achieving the ESGs. And the ESG is needed not only for investment, but also for the prosperity of people and the planet. And this brings us to our third takeaway of the Indaba. We focused a lot on the evolution of African mining. We looked at investing in the energy transition in ESG and economies. And what was so interesting for us as attendees is that when we spoke of ESG, we focused a lot on the E, the environmental aspects, coal mining, the just transition, but there was a lack of focus on the S. And I think Chris Griffith, the CEO of Goldfields, highlighted how we have to focus on the S. We can't only think of ESG and think of decarbonization, which is the E, but we have to focus on the S, which looks at health, education, infrastructure, jobs, procurement, and in Anglo-Americans' words, how we build thriving communities. And we know that for many people who live within mining communities, there is a lack of investment in terms of what social infrastructure is needed. How do we invest in education, in ECD? How do we ensure that as the mine thrives, we build thriving communities? And we appreciate our collaboration with the IDC, who highlighted that even within mining communities, young people find themselves within the experience trap. And YES plays a critical role here to really close this trap and to align with the S in ESG. The last takeaway that we learned from the Mining Indaba is that the mining sector has the potential to be a catalyst for job creation at scale through effective ESG strategies. And in the just transition that the mining sector finds itself in, it must ensure that it leaves no one behind, that people and the community are at the core of the just transition. And this means that we have to report effectively. We have to report effectively on how exactly ESGs are being achieved. We have to align ourselves with indexes so that we are effective in the implementation of ESGs. Where YES comes in here and how YES brings all of these takeaways together is that not only do we create jobs for unemployed young people, but we create meaningful jobs in meaningful industries for the sector. And this is through ECD, education, healthcare, and SMME development, all that build thriving communities. And you may be asking yourself, how exactly does YES assist the mining sector? How exactly does YES align with ESGs? And we do this through our turnkey solution. We call it the implementation partner model. In our turnkey solution, we have over 33 vetted YES implementation partners who operate across South Africa. And the role of these partners is to provide youth with quality work experience in jobs that matter. Now, how we've worked with the mining sector is that we've had a number of mining clients, the biggest one being Anglo American Platinum, followed by Hillside Aluminium. We've rolled out YES programs within these communities where the mines operate, whereby we're not only looking at just creating youth jobs, but we're looking at how do we align with their sustainable mining plans. If I can give you the case of Anglo, which is a very practical example, Anglo American Sustainable Mining Plan states that by 2025, for every one mining job, they want to create 3 non-mining jobs. And by 2030, for every one mining job, they want to create 5 non-mining jobs. When we rolled out the Anglo-American pilot in Tabazimbi and Northam, which is around the Amandelbult mine, we looked at how do we align IPs with the strategy that Anglo has and help them achieve their ESG strategy as well as their SLPs. We then aligned them with 5 implementation partners. 1 partner in the ICT and digital sector, where those youth were placed at municipalities and assisted the municipality in enhancing their technology and equipping those youth with critical skills, including coding. We had another set of youth who were registered with one of the other IPs called Youth Health Africa, and 120 of them worked as your entry-level healthcare workers in your clinics, which was so critical because mining communities need functioning clinics. And the benefit of having youth working as entry-level healthcare workers is that they do key jobs, including lay counseling, where they test people for HIV and link them to their ARVs for treatment, including community contact tracing, so that we can ensure that we're tracing for COVID, for HIV, for TB, including patient navigators, which ensure that the moment patients enter the clinic, their waiting times are shortened because they are assisted speedily. And that's been the benefit of having these youth aligning with very measurable healthcare outcomes within the Amandelbult area for Anglo-American. We also then had a significant number of youth working within schools as your teacher assistants and your ECD practitioners. And again, very measurable outcomes whereby these youth, because they free up time for teachers to teach, that then increases the literacy rates and the numeracy rates of children within the schools. And it's been super, as we've closed off the Anglo project, to be able to actually measure what these outcomes have been. Lastly, we also had some youth working within SMME support and those who are working within your community policing forums. And all of these roles are critical roles needed to build thriving communities. What's been fantastic about the rollout of the Anglo-American Platinum Program is that each aspect that the youth has been involved in has been so measurable such that the drop-off rate for these youth has been significantly low. So Anglo had a 92% retention rate for 720 youth across mining communities. What's also assisted Anglo is that through the turnkey solution, the partners do the recruitment for you. They verify youth documents for you. They pay the youth each month through a very sophisticated system that YES has. They provide them with quality work experience, ensure that the youth has got a supervisor, ensure that they are facilitating absorption on behalf of the client, and absorption within mining communities is key, because the last thing we want is for many youth to not be in employment or training or education after the program. And the last benefit is that we would provide Anglo with quarterly reports, and in fact at times monthly reports, as and when they were needed. So YES truly is the S in ESG. We're not only creating jobs, but meaningful jobs that align with SLPs of mining companies. With that said, I'll hand back over to Mark so that we can start our Q&A session.
Let's try again. Thank you, Farai. Just as maybe as a starting point, before we jump into the rest of the Q&A, I think one of the really key issues that comes up with YES programs being implemented across but a lot of these mining communities involves community engagement. Often there's a perception, yes, it's in Rosebank, and it just kind of directs operations from the mothership or from head office. Farai, maybe you want to give some color as to some of the engagement you've had to be involved in respect of community engagement, plus working with the IPs to deal with the local community.
Thanks, Mark. And I mean, you're absolutely right. It is, I must say, rolling out a YES program for a mining house is very different to how you would roll out a YES program for a bank, for example. And the reason is because within mining towns, they have so much politics happening because of the activities which are taking place at the mines. And because many of these towns have got high levels of unemployment, high levels of poverty, high levels of uneducated persons. And so the politics is definitely there. And what was so key for us was to have numerous meetings with the client to understand what is the best way for us to roll out this program so that we are including the community, because a top-down approach is not successful within mining houses. So what was critical was to be very involved with the client, to show them the quality of implementation partners we have, for them to be able to screen the implementation partners we suggested, who best aligned with their sustainable mining plans, and also with the SLPs that they had. And then when we started the rollout, to engage with the social performance teams on the ground, so that the social performance teams had a say in terms of which partner should be allocated with which host. So what was critical was that while our implementation partners work with YES and they know how YES does things from a compliance perspective, we had to link them with hosts on the ground who already work with Anglo-American Platinum, who already have databases of unemployed youth, who we could then plug into the YES program. We then went down to Tabazimbi about a year ago today to actually roll out the program, which took a week of engaging with stakeholders, letting them know what YES is about, letting them know what the criteria is, how long the opportunity will be, what the stipend or the salary of the youth would be, and also what are the benefits thereof. There were also some discussions in terms of saying, you know, within the Amandelbult area, for example, there are high levels of adult unemployment. So we had to engage with the community to make a compromise as well, to say, how do we ensure that we are empowering youth, we are not leaving adults behind as well. So it did take a lot of engagement, a lot of on the ground work, a lot of sharing and resharing what YES is, how we work with Anglo, and ultimately how we are here to build thriving communities for the benefit of the community. What was really fantastic was that by the Friday when we left, the community was so excited to be part of the YES program. The types of jobs that we created with our partners, the quality of jobs, the fact that recruitment was done by hosts on the ground who already have databases of unemployed persons was so, so important. So yeah, I think it's definitely a longer rollout process than with any other client, but it's so worth it for the community to buy in, to be able to grow and to feel that they are the ones who are charting how the program will flow. And we look forward to rolling out year 2 for Anglo, where it'll be an even larger number than the 720 and across multiple mining communities.
Fabulous. Thanks, Farai. I'm going to give you a moment to catch your breath, and then we'll address the question of what's involved with becoming a YES implementation partner. But I'm just going to respond to one of the questions that has come through on the Q&A facility. It says, thank you for the informative session. I wanted to ask if you're seeing a greater understanding of YES and how it works in corporate South Africa. Lots of our clients are aware of YES, but do not have a firm understanding of how to get involved. Short answer is absolutely. Longer and more detailed answer is absolutely. There's no question about it. The reality is that, like all new pieces of legislation, it does take a while for this to be adopted. I believe empirically that YES is probably the best adopted DTIC incentive in recent memory. The fact that there are over 2,000 businesses participating already, or 2,000 programs in place at the moment, says a lot. Remembering, I mentioned right up front, there are a number of organizations that have returned for their 5th year of participation. Remember, the YES legislation was only gazetted in 2018. So that tells you that there is a lot of a broad understanding of the legislation and how it works. There has been, one of the interesting things has been great to actually get on the road again. We've been doing some interesting road shows with consultants and with verification teams. There are some nuances and queries that have come up, and some really nice detailed questions. So you can actually keep an eye on the YES documentation site, on the YES website. We'll be sending out some updated frequently asked questions shortly. Almost no question that the YES programs are being well adopted, well understood by corporate South Africa. And what's quite encouraging, and I think Farai's already alluded to it, this is starting to go beyond the b-bbee side of things, but also there are really interesting programs being built to incorporate everything from interaction with identifying high potential talent, differently abled youth. We've done an equity equivalent investment program involving YES, enterprise and supply development. The legislation is maturing. The corporates are understanding it and looking at it more strategically. For those who have followed the legislation's history, there was always this perception that it was going to be a short-term incentive. Our feeling is adoption has been great. If we hadn't have had that COVID year, we would be far further ahead in terms of jobs created. And even if I just look at the legislation and the uptake of it with new corporates in the last 3 months, I mean, I think we had a record December, record January, record February, quite a March and April, and suddenly it has rebounded again. So we are really excited with that adoption and very passionate about the impact that the legislation is having. So if you have got questions or you would like us to present to some of your clients, remember, YES is completely agnostic. It will work with any consultants. We want the right programs being adopted and implemented. So always happy to join any of your calls or presentations. With that, Farai, I'm just going to throw this one back to you. What's involved with becoming a YES implementation partner, and how do you measure your YES implementation partners' performances?
Awesome. Thanks, Mark, for the question. So in terms of what's involved in being a YES implementation partner, let me start at the recruitment side. So we will actually start recruiting for additional YES implementation partners in July of this year. We are focusing on 6 key industries at the moment, and this is because of the work that we have done with presidency and also with corporates looking at what are other sunrise economies. These industries and the sectors that we're focusing on include ICT and digital, global business services, artisanal skills, green energy, agri and agri-processing, and the social and care economy. So those are the 6 industries that we would be focusing on for the July rollout. Basic criteria to becoming a YES IP is that you have to be able to take on more than 50 youth at any time. You must be able to pay the youth from your payroll. So there is a process we work out where the corporate will pay YES, and then YES will release the funds to the IP based on checks and balances which are in place so that we know we're paying existing youth. You also must be a BEE level 1, 2, or 3 if you are a for-profit company. If you are an NGO, you should include the empowerment of youth within your MOI to be considered a YES implementation partner. And also your financial sustainability is very key because, of course, we need partners who are able to scale. So while there is a monitoring and evaluation fee that we pay our partners, it's also important that they do have that financial sustainability so that they can scale beyond YES. How do we manage our IPs and ensure that we've got checks and balances in place? What's really great is that we have a really extensive M&E system for our implementation partners. One is that we have check-ins with them each month to ensure that they are meeting the deliverables which are outlined in the implementation partner master agreement, which will look at aspects of managing the drop-off rate, administrative compliance, social impact, reporting to YES, the payroll process as well as meeting the absorption. So IPs have to meet the either 2.5% absorption or the 5% absorption rate. In addition to the monthly check-ins, we also have a scorecard, which is a bi-monthly scorecard, where we'll score the implementation partner on the deliverables outlined in the implementation partner master agreement. Should an IP receive below the minimum acceptable score of 70%, they will not be featured in what we call the jobs menu. The jobs menu is a document of the top performing IP, which is circulated to corporates when they are making a decision on who to choose. So when we did the rollout for Anglo, for example, or Hillside Aluminium, we only put forward implementation partners who scored above the 70% average, because that's how we know these are the best partners to effectively roll out a YES program. In addition to this, we host quarterly best practice sessions with the partners to ensure that there's as much learning as possible. YES supports the partners throughout their journey with us, because the IPMA is a 2-year journey. We also have a system for tracking the movements of youth, which is exclusive to our implementation partners. So if one is interested in becoming a YES IP, please wait until July of this year, where we'll be advertising across social media platforms. If you'd like to start talking to the team already, you're welcome to pop us an email, and I'll write down the email address for the implementation partner team so that you can contact us for any more information on becoming a YES IP.
Awesome. Thanks, Farai. I think there's just one other question at the moment. What is the national minimum wage? I thought it was 3760, but I understand it might have changed. The answer to that is national minimum wage is typically reviewed in February with a new date of the 1st of March. The new national minimum wage is 4020 on the 40-hour work week. If you haven't adjusted your payroll, then please do so to ensure that you are compliant. It is not a YES thing. This is a Department of Labor matter, and it is important that you are compliant with labor legislation. Quick question that's come in here as well, just over the email, is can we expand on the YES monitoring evaluation function? I am cognizant of time, so I'm just going to quickly run through this quickly, but I'm happy to take this discussion offline as well. The YES monitoring evaluation function, remember that YES has the sole license to operate and manage the YES legislation, the YES not-for-profit company, which is established to administer the YES legislation. This legislation mandates YES to conduct monitoring and evaluation function to ensure a 12-month quality work experience. YES has a number of mechanisms in place, including the YES mobile phone, but also a call center, which is doing a couple hundred calls a week, reaching out to the youth, responding to queries and everything from whether they need to go and get a new employment contract, they haven't got a signed employment contract, what are the absorption opportunities, etc., that are available in the market. There's a call center, there's an email support line, there are the apps, and YES takes this mandate very seriously. It is working on strengthening this function as well going forward. And we always welcome your input in terms of either the internal programs, but also those on the sponsored host placement or implementation partner agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, I am cognizant of time. As always, thank you for agreeing to join us today. It has been great to be able to work with you and to get your input, as that playback facility will be made available. And we look forward to engaging with you and bringing on the next YES programs, and hopefully program 6s start in the not too distant future. Unless there are any other questions, I'm going to give 60 seconds and then I'm going to wrap up this call. Thank you, everybody, for your time. All right, there don't seem to be any other questions that have come through, so I'm going to end the session. Thank you for your time, and as always, please feel free to reach out to us. We grow because you grow, and you are giving us feedback to the ecosystem. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to engaging with you again in the next webinar in June 2022. Thank you very much. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.